This week's episode of the And She Looked Up podcast is brought to you by Fine Lime Illustrations. If you love quirky, colorful art transformed into fun, handmade stationery items, pretty much guaranteed to brighten somebody's day, that's just what you'll find in my new online shop at FineLimeIllustrations.com. That's fine as in I'm fine, lime as in the fruit, illustrations.com. Browse the entire collection or sign up for my email list to see some behind the scenes peeks into my studio. You'll also get first notice of new product launches and subscriber only sales. And as an added little bonus, you'll also receive a free coloring sheet to help you relax and de-stress from your day. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the And She Looked Up podcast. Each week, we sit down with inspiring Canadian women who create for a living. We talk about their creative journeys and their best business tips, as well as the creative and business mindset issues all creative entrepreneurs struggle with. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and after leaving a 20-year career in corporate retail, I've been happily self-employed for 12 years. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a multi-six-figure-a-year entrepreneur in the digital content space. This podcast is for the artists, the makers, and the creatives who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I am your host, Melissa, and I am back this week with the amazing Heather Travis. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Melissa.
And today we are going to be talking about virality, going viral. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about in this episode. But I think the thing that I would like to ask you all to think about as we are doing this episode is to think about your creative business and what might happen to you if you were to go viral tomorrow. Do you think that you are ready for it? So that is the big question to ask yourself. But before we dive into this week's episode, I do just want to remind everyone that if you are not already, you can become a premium subscriber to the podcast. It costs about $3 US a month, which works out to around $5 a month Canadian. But, exchange rates can change that from month to month. But with that, you get an exclusive bonus episode every month that I record, and you can join our premium subscriber group either through our Patreon or directly here on Buzzsprout. And I will put links to both of these in the show notes. So when you support the podcast, it helps us to pay for our podcast hosting fees, which are separate from our website hosting fees. We have to have a place to put the podcast, and it helps pay for our website hosting and for our newsletter service and all the other expenses that come with running a podcast. So it is greatly appreciated when you do. And we've got a lovely little club of people who join us every month for an extra episode. And sometimes I even do a second episode if I have something on my mind that I just feel like sharing. So yes, if you would like to join us with that, now would be a great time. And it is very much appreciated. All of you who are already subscribed, thank you so much. It goes a long way to keeping this podcast going. So on that note, Heather, we're going to talk about going viral today. And this is really interesting. This is an episode Heather and I actually wanted to do last season, but we ran out of time. And shortly after I had broached the idea with her, Heather and her husband both had social media posts go viral within a week of each other. So we wouldn't, if we had recorded when we wanted to, we wouldn't have been able to include your experiences, but because we were behind the eight ball on that one, now we get the extra benefit of hearing about those experiences from you. And I think they were actually quite different experiences as well.
Very.
So, but it was just funny that literally within a week of each other, this happened for you. And so, yeah, why don't we start with that? Why don't we talk a little bit about what happened for you and then what happened for Brian? So maybe tell us, you had, I believe it was it a story or a reel that
No,
went viral?
both. So for both of us, it was a reel, which is what makes it kind of an interesting apples to apples story, but it's really not an apples to apples story, despite the friendly husband wifey competition that may have arisen as a result of this. But I think the thing for me that's most fascinating about this is that it challenges me on what do you define as viral, because like, what is viral? Viral is reaching how many people? Millions, tens of thousands? Like, what's viral? What's viral for me versus what's viral for you? Anyway, I find it all very fascinating. Both of us was reels. Brian's was only a 14-second reel capturing a really random, funny moment, sort of a customer's idiot, sort of headbanging, hysterical moment. And then for me, mine was a 34-second chart prompt. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, on Saturday mornings, I host a live Instagram art class called Chart with Heather, shitty art class for adults, etc. And I wanted to take a summer hiatus, so I was pre-recording reels and sharing the reels as a prompt. And then they both videos, we'll call them that, reels, kind of went a little nutso. Do you want data?
What let's get into that. So
okay.
you have an art business, and Brian has a bricks and mortar retail business,
bicycle shop,
and service business. So yeah, he's got retail and service combined.
Yes.
Yes. So so very different businesses. Your reel was directly related to your business.
Correct.
Brian's not so. I mean, it was a customer situation, but
so it directly relates to his business and industry. But it had really nothing to do with any. I mean, we sell the product at our shop. But the customer had we had asked the customer to bring their bicycles, the trainer that they ride their indoor bicycle on, into the shop, and rather than disassembling the trainer from the bicycle, the person managed, which is like a miracle in engineering how it worked, but somehow got the bicycle with the trainer onto the back of their car and made it all the way to the bike shop. And when he pulled into the driveway, Brian immediately was like, "Hold, I need to record this. Nobody will believe me." And then when he came home, he's like, "You need to set this to music. You need to make this real. This is too good not to share." And so
because the trainer is really heavy. Is that right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
yes. And like heavy. It should not, like the fact that it even made it out of the house, let alone the car ride. And
it's like nothing putting your Peloton bike on the back of your car.
It really is. Like, it was the most shocking feat of engineering. And also, yes, Brian learned a lesson in clear communication to customers that day. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but for the average person watching the reel, it wouldn't necessarily have twigged that this was a bicycle business or anything.
No,
like
and it literally could have been any from, there was just music in the background. There was no language barrier. And so, it was just cinematic music in the background. There was no English or other language being used. It was very obviously just I'll use like a fail video. That's what it was, like a hashtag fail video, or fail moment, or whatever the kids are calling it these days. That's all it was. Whereas mine was very clearly like, "I'm Heather Lynn Travis, and here's the chart prompt, and here's what you're going to do, and here's the activity." And I guided you through, we'll call it a storyboard, as a content creator that I had thought through from start to middle to end, with a purpose of sharing deliberately. Like, it was deliberately made content deliberetely for my business versus Brian's. Yeah.
I think that's a pretty important distinction for people to realize. Because I think one of the things I see popping up a lot in groups and with clients and things is, I want to create viral videos. I want to hire a V8 who makes viral videos. And it's like, what is a viral video? So I think this is really interesting, is you created something very specific to your business, branded to your business. And Brian's was more of capturing a funny moment that happened around his business, but isn't necessarily about
Correct.
promoting his business. So two very different types of reels. So how many views did yours wind up getting?
So mine ended up getting not huge, but just over 17,000 views. So
Okay.
again, define viral. My
Wait, compared to
normal
what you
reel,
normally get.
yeah. So normal reel for me would be between 1,000 and 3,000 people.
Okay.
So this, was
17
exponentially
times.
larger.
Yeah.
It
17
got
times.
it got shared 198 times, which normally if I was getting shares, it would be 5, 6, 7,
Mhm.
10. And it got saved 202 times. But
Okay.
the analytic that actually is the most fascinating for me is that over the time that those 17,000 views were happening, I gained over 1,200 new followers,
Okay.
and I haven't lost them since. So I've
Okay.
stayed at that number,
All
which is
right.
the most fascinating to me.
Yes, it is. Because
Mhm.
I don't think any two reels have the same kind of engagement, like it's different for every one. So tell
Mhm.
us what Brian did with his.
So Brian's video got almost 750,000 views. So it was 750,000. It was shared almost as many times as mine was viewed, almost 17,000 shares, saved over 1,000 times, but he got maybe 50 new followers.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So outpaced you tremendously when it comes to
Tremendously.
views, but when it came to keeping those people,
Yep.
you you were the winner. If we're going
Yes.
with winner and loser, I guess.
Yes. And like what's fascinating is he created just a moment that was worth being shared,
Yeah.
regardless of, if you're interested in bicycles even at all.
It's just a funny moment. Yeah.
It was
It
just a
was
funny moment.
entertaining.
Correct. Whereas mine was, a lot of people commented, did this woman just say shart? Like, is she really serious? Is this, which also, side note, really hysterically confuses me when people talk about me on my own video like I'm not there. Like that kills me. Anyway,
That is one of the things that happens when you go viral, though. People talk about you
fascinating.
like you're not there.
They
It's
literally,
hilarious.
I'm like, this is me. Hello, you're talking to me. Yes, she knows. She is I am she. Anyway, so that it was like a humor, but it was still an art directed. Like people were still connecting with, I'll call it the business driver. The reason I created the content is what attracted people to my account, and
Mhm.
I guess has kept them there. But I have not had any other content go near that far since. Like I'm back down
Okay.
to the 1,000, 3,000 views. I didn't get
So
any newsletter
I
subscribers.
was just this is going to be my next question. You got 1,200 new followers. That's a lot of new followers, especially on Instagram today.
Yep. Yes.
There was a time where getting 1,200 new followers wasn't that difficult.
Yep.
Today, that is a pretty big
Uh-huh.
follower hit in such a short period of time. That's very
Yeah.
hard to achieve. So, out of all those followers, how many wound up subscribing to your newsletter list?
Not one of them. And
Not
not one
one.
of them bought anything on my website.
Did
I saw
any of them
no.
attend any of your Shart classes that you do? Your
So I
lives?
saw future Shark classes pick up in viewership. So the
Mhm.
reels got more views. We're back to doing lives now. The numbers have climbed for lives. So I have new people joining
Okay.
the activity, which is wonderful. But I have made no more money. I have, and what I would call a hard lead. So people signing up for my newsletter
Mhm.
has not happened. And the same thing with Brian. He had um, no new customers walk into the bike shop. As I said, like it was maybe 50 new followers. Like it was nothing tangible in terms of followers for him, and made no sales. And in fact, interestingly enough, just a note for social media managers, all of the companies that were involved in the fail that Brian shared, to which they triumphed. PS, like this was a fail, but your product succeeded where everybody thought it should fail. So it's a failure on the customer's part, not the product. Not one of those brands shared the content.
So that is really interesting. So one of the things that I think is interesting about this is you are an online business that can be
Mhm.
accessed from anywhere in the world. But Brian is a bricks and mortal bricks and mortar
He is
business.
immortal too, as well. Yeah, yeah.
Is a bricks and mortar business in a small town.
Yep.
So I think it's quite possible that a lot of people did check him out, but then realized, oh, okay, this is a
Yep.
business that's in an area I'm never going to go visit. And so maybe they didn't
Correct.
follow him.
Yep.
So I think that is something to consider when you're thinking about this is, it's great if you get seen by a million people, but if you are somewhere like how many of those million people are actually in your customer
Exactly.
area, right?
Yeah.
And are going to shop with you. And with a bike shop, it's a lot harder to be an online store, right?
Totally.
You're not,
Totally.
most of your
Oh,
customers are
totally.
in person. They're not buying bikes online. And I don't know if Brian even has an online component to the
No,
shop,
we
but
don't.
yeah, so
Deliberately
yeah,
to be the retail shop that you want to come to. Yeah.
exactly. And we should mention that Brian has won is it Ontario's best bike shop? Like
One of Canada's best bike
best bike
shops 7 years in a
year
row.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he has a
Yes.
great shop, people. If you are
Yes.
in Owen Sound in Ontario, go check him out. But so there he got a little promotion from the Spire Alley.
Yes.
But I think that is something to think about. He's not a bike shop in Toronto or Vancouver. He's in a
No.
smaller location that has a big
Yep.
tourist market in the summer.
Yeah.
And so it's, yeah,
Very
it's
different.
cool that he had a video go and get,
Yes.
750,000 views, but that is something you need to think about if you run a bricks and mortar store is how many of those people can legitimately become your customer.
Yes. You
So
know what
where,
was really interesting for Brian was the as the feed kept pumping out views and you'd get notifications, he literally was like, this is doing my business a disservice. It's cluttering my feed and
yeah,
notifications so deeply that
and
I
we're going
can't
to,
actually respond to the people who
yes.
matter to me.
And we're going to talk about that as we get into the episode, because that is one of the things you have to
Hmm.
be prepared for when you go
Yeah.
viral.
Yeah.
So this is a really interesting comparison, and it is really interesting to know that neither of you has actually financially benefited from this.
Hmm.
Although I do think you are in a pretty good position. You've brought 1,200 new people into your ecosystem. They haven't gone as far into your ecosystem as you want, but they haven't
Hmm.
left it either.
Yeah.
So now you are in this area, in this what I would consider like a nurture mode. Your job right
Hmm.
now is
Yep.
to nurture those people to eventually get them. And this is the thing you have to think about when with going viral is, and I really think this is where Instagram is at. Period. At this point, I don't
Mm.
feel like Instagram is a great attract vehicle anymore,
No.
but it is a very good nurture vehicle.
Yes.
And this kind of gets into the episode I did for our subscribers in November is stop worrying about your follower, about new followers, and start worrying about the people
Yeah.
who already follow you, sort of like a
Yes.
phone company, right? They're always trying to, your
Yes.
mobile company's always trying to get people into the ecosystem, but the people who are already there, they completely ignore them and piss them off, and they wind up moving to,
Yes.
so anyways, yes. So, and I do think one of the things to think about is that there are different levels of going viral. And I was trying to think of a way to kind of explain this to people who are wanting to go viral. And I think all of us have wanted to go viral at some point, whether we want
Yep.
to admit it or not. So
Mm.
some people are very upfront about the fact that they want to go viral, and others of us are like, no, I don't need that. But secretly they're like, so nice.
Yes, it would be
So
nice.
anyway, the way I kind of came up to think about it is, imagine if you are a writer or a musician, and for a lot of writers and musicians, you can self-publish today, just like anyone can start an Instagram account and get their content out there. But for a lot
Mhm.
of writers and musicians, they want that traditional publishing deal or that traditional record deal, because there is still a cachet with that is you've made it. And
Mhm.
only a fraction of writers and musicians, a tiny, tiny fraction, actually get that deal. And so once you've got your publishing deal or your record deal, that's kind of like one level of going viral. Like you've hit that big milestone marker that a lot of your peers will never achieve. But just getting that record deal or that publishing deal doesn't necessarily do anything for your bottom line. It doesn't necessarily earn you any money. It doesn't necessarily get you seen by more people. It's just, yeah, it happened and wow, that's great. Then out of all those people who do get the deal, only a teeny tiny percentage of them become the next Taylor Swift or John Grisham or Daniel Steele, or, you know, these authors and musicians that are just known by their last names or first names, you know. How many Taylor Swifts are out there? There's one. Right. There's one Taylor Swift. There's nobody else really doing close to what she's doing these days. But that would be like the ultimate going viral.
Oh my God.
Right. You know, she's filling stadiums, she's selling merch, she's putting out movies, she's doing everything, you know. And you've got John Grisham, whose books are turned into movies. And the cool thing with John Grisham, he has the freedom to write what he wants now. He writes all these other genres and stuff because he's earned that right. And I think that's another really important thing to think about when these people go viral with a capital V. Doesn't mean they work any less. Like I would say Taylor Swift is one of the hardest working women in the world right now.
Correct.
And I would say John Grisham falls into that category too. And all the other people like that, they work their asses off because they realize that having that one thing go viral doesn't equal a career.
No.
Right? Or a business. It's just a one-time shot. So I think that's a good way to kind of think about what going viral can do. A lot of people will be like Heather and Brian and get umpteen times more views than they normally do, but it doesn't necessarily translate into millions of dollars coming in.
No, nothing.
Or even tens of dollars coming in.
No, even tens of dollars, nothing, nada, zip, zilch. All it did was fuel a little healthy competition between us. That's all it did.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, because Melissa and I had talked about this episode before the experience happened, we were constantly paying attention, you know, as business owners ourselves, we were looking at the data constantly and saying, okay, did you get any followers though? So 250 new shares today. Great. Did you get any followers? Nope. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And then even keeping those people, like that nurture business, that to me, that I would argue, if you're trying to go viral, you need to actually backtrack and think, what do I need to do to nurture people if I go viral? Because it's probably harder to nurture than it is to go viral. Like nurture meaningfully and keep those people.
Yes. So let's get into what happens when you go viral. Like what are you ready? The question I asked you all to think about as you were listening to this episode is, if you were to go viral tomorrow, are you prepared for it? Because I think there's a lot of things that happen that you don't even realize are going to happen, and you're not prepared for them. And so, it's great to want to go viral. To actually go viral and have to deal with it is a whole other thing. So, and you learn that firsthand. So it was really interesting. And that's actually how this episode came about. I was listening to a podcast with somebody who had gone viral and said it had been financially beneficial to her, but it was not what she was expecting and not what she was prepared for, and not ultimately the best thing for her business. So I thought that was a very interesting way to look at it, because we always assume it's going to be a good thing for our business.
Yeah. And honestly, like that, it terrified me, the thought of having to manufacture prints quickly. It terrified me, the thought of losing the sort of fun element of like small batch making. Like when you and I started talking about this episode, I got extreme amounts of anxiety and like felt sick to my stomach. And I remember, funny enough, you had texted me and you were like, what about an episode of, and I literally responded, I'm like, this makes me feel sick to my stomach.
I know.
This is now though, I don't feel sick to my stomach. In fact, I'm like, okay, what would I do if I would go? Because I'll tell you categorically, unless you have some like freaking miracle of miracles, the likelihood that you're going to sell out your entire Etsy shop or all of your paintings are going to sell tomorrow because of something going viral is so freaking slim to none, like so slim to none that it's not making sure you have a whole inventory of prints and supplies and shipping supplies. It's making sure you know what you want out of your business and like the business model and what am I making content for and who am I making content for?
Yeah, I
In
mean,
terms of
this is
making it.
the thing. I already mentioned there's a lot of people out there who say they want to hire a VA who can
Yeah.
make them viral videos. So let's talk about that first. How do you know what's going to go viral? Like, did you
Mhm.
have any inkling, or did Brian have any inkling that the content you posted was going to be the thing that went viral?
No. And in fact, funny enough, and this I do have to kick myself, is that for my previous shirt reels, which I had been making, I'd made a number of them before this one went viral, quote viral, define viral, but blew up bigger than the others. I mapped out my outfit more carefully. I had it scripted more carefully. I, in fact, probably re-recorded the episode, so to speak, multiple times to get it just right. And that week I had sort of scripted it out, but I was running short on time. And I literally, as I encourage people when we're sharding, I just sharded the episode out. I came upstairs into my studio, hit record, and just got it done. It was one of the shortest reels that I made out of short prompts. It was the one that I gave the least amount of preparation to. It was still mapped out. It was still on brand. It still had a target audience. It still was on my business plan of things that I wanted to do. But I took the least amount of time to make it, put the least amount of energy into doing it, and somehow it just went. Yeah.
And Brian was just capturing a funny moment in his
And
day.
literally it was, and all I said to him was, I'm so glad you even thought in the moment to just capture the video.
Yes.
And he was like, I just took the video because nobody would believe me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear this over and over again. I don't think there is a way to plan a viral video.
No,
I know there's a
I
lot
don't
of
think there
gurus
is.
out there who are willing to sell you a course on how to make a
Yeah.
viral video, but I don't think you know what's going to capture people in that moment. And I think
No.
it's a moving target. I think it depends on what's going on
Totally.
in the world. I think it depends on how people are feeling.
Yep.
I think there's definitely times where people are looking for something really silly and funny. There's other
Yep.
times where they're just looking for something creative. Let's be honest. The fact that you use the word shart probably
Yep.
is what helped get yours seen, because it's a silly word.
But
that
I've
you
been
giggle
using
about.
it for
I
I've been
know.
using
See,
it for 2 years prior. Like that's
and
the
that's
thing
the
that kills
thing.
me.
You don't know when it's going to hit,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
it could have hit the first time you used it,
Yes.
but it didn't. It hit 2 years
No.
later, and you could have given up on that name in the
Oh,
meantime,
yeah.
because it's just, I
No,
mean,
it's
you
still a
wouldn't
goal
have,
in life
because
when
it's
you look up
it's your
shart in the dictionary is to have my name underneath it.
it's
That's a goal.
still, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have given up on it because it's just part of your branding at
Yeah.
this point. But
Correct.
yeah, so I think that's the thing to think about, is that I don't think it's possible to plan a viral video.
Mm-mm.
They just
No.
happen. But what you
Yeah.
can plan and be prepared for is what to do when it does happen, if you're lucky enough. And there are people out there, I just want to make this really clear. There are people out there, a lot of people out there running very successful businesses,
Mhm.
very successful social media accounts, who have never had viral content.
Yeah.
You don't need it to be successful. It's not required. Okay. And
Nope.
yeah, so I just want to make that clear. If you're feeling like, oh, it's never going to happen for me, it doesn't have to happen
Mhm.
for you. So in terms of like being prepared for it, one of the things that I think about a lot is, when I'm creating content, if it were to go viral, is there a way for people to know that I was the original creator of that content?
Brilliant question.
Yeah, because this is something I see a lot, and I think as creatives we're very aware of, is when people use our work and don't credit us or talk to us.
Especially with AI now.
Yeah. That's a whole other episode
Whole other
that
topic.
I have notes already written for. So
Oh, yeah.
that's for another time. But yes, so there are all kinds of accounts out there, very large accounts in terms of follower count, that purely survive off of repurposing other people's content.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I follow a lot of dog accounts, and there's these
Mm.
dog accounts, and they don't post anything original. It's just other reels and videos of dogs from other dog accounts around the internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just become a curation account.
Yeah.
And so there's a very good possibility, if you have a piece of content go viral, that other accounts are going to pick it up. Some are going to share it properly so that you get the credit
Yep.
for it and people can see
Yep.
the original account, but a lot of accounts are not. And they
Yep.
may not even, I see this all the time. DM me for credit or whatever. Like if you're the
Yeah.
original, because they're too lazy to go figure out
Yes.
and they're just hoping to, anyway. So anyway,
Yep.
what is there in your reels or videos or even your static posts that identifies you as a creator? Is there anything? You're pretty good at this.
That's it. And so it's very interesting that you say that with the shirt. I always hold a sign in front of me that, says Shirt with Heather. It has my Instagram handle, and it's very much branded shirt throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I have now started trying, particularly with photos of me in my studio. I have a sign that I have, when I go work at like trade shows or whatever. And I have it hanging in my studio deliberately, and I try and include it so that if it's a picture of me, it's a picture that includes my full name. But I hadn't thought of that until very recently, honestly. And funny enough, I had started thinking about it when a friend sent me a reel that it was one of the reels where it was audio that was obviously not original to that video. The person, and I do these all the time, like you're pretending to be somebody else.
Yep.
Usually in my case, it's a celebrity, but the person thought that the voice and the audio was actually me and literally was like, this is Heather. And she said this, and somebody is using her voice, and it wasn't me. Thank you. But it wasn't me. But I was like, oh, wow. Yes, like it didn't even dawn on me that somebody could go in and re-record a chart, for instance, and take that audio and do their own chart prompt and like pretend to be me.
Yeah, a great example of that is Tatum, the talking dog. I don't know if you follow Tatum, but Tatum talks, and his owners are hilarious, and he's hilarious, and his audio from his videos is used everywhere on Instagram and TikTok, everywhere. I had been hearing the audio clips
so that I know who it is
before I even realized he's the dog that says, "Hey, lady."
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly. I'm like, I know exactly who that is.
Hey guy. Anyway, he's hilarious. But it was years before I realized this voice actually belonged to a specific account. And once I found the account, now that's where I go to get all the original content. But yeah, had no idea that this was, I just thought it was some track on Instagram music that you could, or TikTok that you could pick to sync to. So, yeah. And Tatum has his own book, and he has merch and stuff. And so his owners don't, when that content is used elsewhere, his owners are missing out on.
Yeah. There's no royalties in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something to think about before you go before you go viral is how would people, and I think there's a lot of ways to do that. Like you hold a sign, you have your banner in the background. It could be even just putting text on top of the reel saying, this is me, or with your website address or something. You can also put something in the actual description for the reel, although that may disappear if somebody just steals the video. So you have to think about. I don't think
anybody reads descriptions in reels anymore. Like I have
I'm
done
an old lady though.
Yeah, I've done experiments, and like I've dropped Easter eggs and literally nothing.
Most people don't. I think you're absolutely right. And usually when I do look at the description, I'm looking for a hashtag rather than but you never know. So it's just, it doesn't hurt to put it in there, but do be aware that the description can be stripped out. So so I like to try and put it actually somewhere in the reel if I remember to, which I very often don't. So and that's the thing, when you do something spur of the moment like what Brian did, you may not be thinking to like put something or make sure that the Forks Bicycle Shop sign is in the background or whatever. Right. So
and even mine, like it was I just needed to get this done. Like I just needed it off my to-do list. And even, a thought out on brand exercise piece of content creation, even that, I was like, get it done, up, up, up. I didn't think of like unique hashtags. I didn't do anything specific to that unique video. It literally was like, up, 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 get this off my list, move on to the next thing. Like it was not, I could have done a much better job about trying to do my job, which is, if you're going to make content, think it through, think about who the audience is, think about why you're making it. Is it on brand? Does it align? You know, I could have done a better job doing all of those things. And maybe that would have translated to maybe sales.
Maybe it might not have, but
Might not have. I don't think so, but
you never know, right? And so
right?
if you can put something in there that lets people know who you are, do it. I think that's important. Now you mentioned you got 1,200 new followers, and Brian had 50, which is quite different. But one of the things you mentioned with Brian is that he actually found it super irritating with all the notifications coming in, because there was no way to filter out the things he really needed to respond to.
Yeah.
And so that is something else we all need to think about, is when you go viral. I mean, you know what it's like when you pick up your phone and there's like 20 DMs or something in there, and maybe that's a normal day for you, and you're just like, like you miss one, or you scroll through and you didn't see it, or you forget to answer, or it showed, anyway, lots of things. But imagine instead of 20, you have 2,000 in a 24-hour period, or 20,000 in a 24-hour period. How are you going to cope with that?
Yeah. And like, how are you going exactly? And how are you going to prioritize, again, in terms of that nurturing? You need to prioritize your existing customers. And so if you're thinking they like me, they really like me, and you're all excited to be chatting with new people, if you're forgetting about the person who's been through the mud with you, you're going to lose.
They're trying to place an order for $300, and they're lost because all these people who
that's exactly it. Like, you can't. And so you really, that again, it's thinking through, what are my priorities? And if your priorities are, and then that's where you need to be clear in your communications. You need to post your stories and say, a video has gone viral. I've had an overwhelming number of responses. My number one priority is my existing customers. You will all be responded to within 24 hours. Everybody else, I'll get to you in the next 3 or 4 days. Thank you so much for being here. Love, me. Because, because otherwise, tricky.
Yeah. Or let people know that if it's really urgent, to contact you through email or through your website, or just some way to let them know that, yes, I want to hear from you. I might not be able to see where you're at in my mess of an inbox, but you need
and that's where you use your other tools too, right? Like, if you have an e-newsletter, all of those people probably follow you on Instagram, and so they probably follow you on multiple platforms. So that's, if you've blown up on one, post the others to speak to your core audience and say, hey guys, I hear you. I love you. I'm getting to you. And I haven't forgotten about you. You're the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
So those are the people who are going to celebrate that success with you. But also remember that you didn't forget them when, they became rich and famous. Yes. Exactly.
Absolutely. And I think the other important thing to remember with all of this newfound engagement that you're going to get, whether it's DMs, comments, shares, whatever, there's going to be trolls. And are you, one of the things about having, my 2,100 followers or whatever it is on Instagram, is that the people who engage with me are people who like what I do. They're my fans. They're lovely people. And so I don't get a lot of nonsense on my social media. But the minute other people find you, the nonsense arrives. I just think people can't help themselves. I just literally, on Sunday, my local community Facebook group, which has about 18,000 people in it. So it's not a small group, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
But we have selling Sundays. It's the only day of the week where you're allowed to post whatever you have for sale, whether it's a garage sale or whether it's a product or your business or whatever. So it's very hard to get seen, because obviously
Yeah.
everyone is posting.
Yeah.
But I had a few, I did some special edition Christmas card packs this year. There's 3 cards in envelopes, but what made them special is the envelopes are all hand illustrated in pen and ink.
Mhm.
And so they were 3-pack for $15, which I think was an extremely
That's a
reasonable
great deal.
price.
Yep.
Anyway, I posted them. Think I have like a couple of packs left, and I just wanted to get rid of them
Yep.
for the season.
Yeah.
And one of the very first comments was, "Yeah, this is way too expensive for me." And I was just like, you can't see my face right now, but I was just, I was
Yeah.
so
Like
angry.
steam would have come out of my ears if I had
I
read that.
was
Yeah.
so angry. I mean, you know, I never post in this group because of all the nonsense that goes on, as it does in all community Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just was kicking myself. Like, why did I even bother?
Yeah.
Because I knew
Yeah.
this was going to happen. There was going to be some joker who just needs to make a snotty comment about whatever, when they
Yep.
could have just scrolled on by. And I left a very polite, friendly comment. But in the long run, actually, I will say this, because she left that snotty comment,
Mhm.
and I made a nice reply, it got bumped in the algorithm, because most of those posts don't get any comments or likes
Yeah,
or
that's
anything.
true.
And so I wound up
Yep.
actually
Oh,
having a bunch of
interesting.
people pile on and just say, I think they're beautiful, or it's obvious you put a lot of work into them,
Right.
because they could tell this person had been a jerk.
Yeah.
So thanks to that person, I actually wound up getting seen by far more people than I would have.
Brilliant.
But at the
Yes.
same time, I was irritated. I was very angry.
Yes.
And
And so what's interesting is that's just a mini version. Like that's literally
Totally.
why did you go viral? Because somebody got pissy.
Yes.
And so like,
The
how are you going to
algorithms
deal with that?
feed off this crap.
Yeah.
They feed off of controversy and
Yep.
snotty comments and people being unkind. It's
Yes.
You can say they don't, but it's obvious when I see what's in my feed on a daily basis,
Yeah.
that this is what gets prioritized. Did I say
Yeah.
that right? It sounded funny. What gets prioritized?
No.
Anyways, so yeah, are you prepared to deal? I mean, this is just one person who said
Mhm.
something that wasn't particularly insulting. It was just annoying, but
Yeah.
still, my steam and I saw red, right? So are you prepared for 20, 30, 50, 1,000 people making really snotty comments or engaging in a snotty way on your content?
Yeah.
Because that's probably going to happen if you go viral. Like you
No
mentioned,
kidding.
people were talking about you like you weren't even there. And that
Yeah.
wasn't
And it's
necessarily
not,
being a troll. They were just like, it's like,
yeah. Literally, and I was like, dude, this is my, like, you're talking about me as if I'm not even in the room. And yet I'm not just in the room. This is my fucking room. I made this room. Like, it's not just me in my room. This is my room. And you're talking about me like I don't exist, which I find fascinating. But anyway,
it's like they're at home watching it on television with their buddies.
Yes. And like having a random, yes. Totally fascinating. Anyway, I found, and honestly, most of it was very good conversation or like hysterical, whatever. I chose not to engage. I just liked those comments as myself, because what am I supposed to do? A few people I was like, yes, it's called Shart for a reason. And I like tried to be happy. I did have one person say something that was not kind towards people who have different sexual orientations than I do. And I immediately commented and said, we don't welcome that language here, and you're going to be blocked. And this comment's being deleted. Thank you very much. Like, goodbye. Because so somebody commenting and saying that's expensive is a different negativity in terms of expanding
It wasn't
horizons.
hateful. It wasn't.
No,
what was said to me
exactly.
was not
Whereas like
hateful.
I
It
have a
was-
very firm boundary on, if I can educate people, absolutely. If you're coming here to learn, we can have conversations. Absolutely. If you're just coming here to do that, I'm coming here to say no. And boop, you're gone. You're out of my world. I have a very firm boundary. But that goes back to understanding what my brand is and what it isn't, and where I stand and what I'm willing to draw lines on, particularly when it comes to behavior around things that I myself have created. So I know I can't control the comments and the actions around other people around things that other people have created. I might try my very best. So if something happened to you, I would try my, do you know what I mean? And chime in and be the supportive internet friend. Uh, but it's only my little world that I can control. I can't
Mhm.
control anything else. And so you have to know very clearly what
Yeah.
this is all back to you and I talk about our branding episode.
Yeah, we have an
I think
episode
every time
on
we talk,
your logo is
but
not your brand. We'll link to it
correct.
in the show notes.
Yes, I think every time we talk, we flash back to that episode, but it
Yeah.
is like your branding is so important and understanding who you are and where you're going to draw boundaries and all of that, I think is so important to the creation of the content and then the managing of the potential virality and all of the things that come along with
Yeah.
it.
So if you are somebody who doesn't have a particularly thick skin and that kind of commenting can be very
Mm,
upsetting to you, think about that
yeah.
as you're posting, and just remember that it can happen, and if you get
Yep.
big enough, it will happen. And not just I think a lot of us want to go viral because we want that bigger follower count and
Yeah.
bigger engagement, but you have to understand, the more eyeballs that are on you, the
Hmm.
more people who will surface who don't like what you do. Okay.
Correct.
And this is just a fact of life. We are
Yeah.
not put on this planet to make everyone happy. We will never
Hmm.
make everyone happy. We shouldn't even be trying to make everyone happy because it's
No,
not possible.
no.
But you do need to appreciate the fact that the more people who see your work and see you, the more you're going to hear from people who don't think you're the bee's knees.
Hmm.
And you need to have a game plan,
Yeah.
particularly if you have, um, you know, precarious mental health or anything like
Yep.
that.
Yes.
We've all had those days where,
Yep.
you're having a bad day, and if somebody could just say your shoelace is untied and you'll burst into tears, right? Because like, oh my God, my
Yes. Been there,
shoelace.
done that. Yes.
Exactly. So just
Yep.
before you post anything, especially if you schedule content, think about that. Like, think about, am I
Yeah.
in the mood to handle what might come back at me today?
Yeah.
Some days you might be in a spicy mood and you're totally okay with it. Other days you might just have your line in the sand pants on, where you just say, nope,
Yep.
you're out,
Not
and
today.
other
Yep.
days there's going to be days where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this person said this, and you want to crawl under a rock and
Yeah.
disappear from the internet. So think about that kind of stuff, because trolls are out there and they can be vicious
Totally.
and nasty.
Yeah.
So
And to me, it's like part of that. And this, of course, is my PR marketing background, but this is like your crisis planning and
mm-hmm,
it's thinking through the what ifs.
mm-hmm,
And if you want to have a happier analogy than crisis planning, pretend it's like prom and all the things you ever wanted to dream to happen at prom. And you go through the what ifs. Well, what if this happens at prom? And how am I going to deal with that? And what if, he doesn't pick me up at the door? Or what if my dress gets ripped? Or what if I end up drinking too much and I barf? How am I going to deal with all of those things? The scenarios of the what ifs. Think those through. That's virality. And, you're going to have to
yeah,
deal with, yeah. And again, like think about why, if you have ever thought about going viral, think about why you wanted to go viral. And I'm sure that there's a different way you could achieve that end without maybe some of the negative things that come from going viral. So if you just want more sales, well, then
there's lots of ways to achieve that.
there's lots of ways you can
You
grow
don't
your
even need social
sales.
media for that, if we're being really honest. So
That's exactly it. So like if you want to grow your following, well, then maybe that's being just more consistent on your Instagram as opposed to trying to make something surprise that's going to go viral. So like there's lots of ways to do things and accomplish your goals
mm-hmm,
without going viral. And if going viral is your only goal,
you're not thinking it through.
you're not really thinking
yeah,
it through. Like if it's not connected to a business strategy, what's the point?
yeah. And on that note, in terms of how you're going to handle these things, there's
Mm,
some of the things to think about. Like one that I think is probably overlooked tremendously, and you may never need this,
mm,
but on the off chance that you do, is, are you prepared for media inquiries?
that's
Do
a
you
good one.
have a
Yes.
media kit? Like, I don't watch the news often, but when I do, it's usually the National on CBC. And they
Hmm.
do this little segment at the end of every show. It's called The Moment, I think.
Hmm. Yes.
And they started it during the pandemic. It was meant to be kind of a lighthearted moment with all the doom and gloom that was going on. And they've kept it up because I think it's been very popular. And very often the moment that they share is something funny or
Yes.
silly that's happened on social media that's gone viral.
Yes.
And they actually contact the creator of the video and have a little interview with them. So what if somebody from CBC's The National called you up? That's
Yeah.
a big opportunity to
No
get
kidding.
seen by people who
Yes.
may not ever be on social media or may not have seen what went viral. And I have
Yes.
actually wound up following several accounts from seeing these, like the
Yep.
fellow from Kenya, I think, who saw snow for the first time after he moved to Canada. Have you
Beautiful.
seen that video? That's so
That's so
sweet.
beautiful. Yes. So beautiful.
So, um, anyway, yeah, they are you prepared to talk to those people?
Yeah.
Do you have a media kit? Because one set of media attention usually brings other media outlets looking to talk
Yes.
to you. So this is a great opportunity to be able to share what it is that you do, what your business is, how people can find you.
Yes.
It's free marketing that many of us never ever get on a national newscast.
Yes.
And that's just one opportunity. There are lots of other news outlets who do this kind of thing, and they want to talk to the original creator. So be prepared to promote yourself. If you have a media kit, that's even better, because then you
Yep.
can just send this off to people and say, yeah, this is who we are, and here's a little
Mhm.
bit more about us. And it helps their producers know what kind of questions to ask, and get you seen in the right light.
I knew what you meant there.
Yes. So yeah, and that's another question. Are you comfortable being interviewed?
Yes. Yeah,
Because
that's a
if
big
you're
one.
not, then
What's going to happen?
what's
Like,
going
are
to
you going to put
happen when
somebody
people
else
want to
out
talk to
in,
you?
in your stead, like your spokesperson,
Exactly.
like your
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, and you have an official spokesperson?
So think about that. Have you ever
Yep.
had media training? Um, Media training. Heather actually gave me my media training years ago.
Yeah.
I know. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Me and
And
my
I've done
business
it.
partner.
It's exhausting for
It is.
both the participant and the trainer.
It's hard. It's really hard.
It's hard work.
But honestly, one of the best things I ever did for my
Yeah.
career as a self-employed
Yes.
entrepreneur was to go through
Yes.
media training. And I find it very interesting when I record podcasts. I can tell immediately who's been media trained and who
Yes.
hasn't.
Oh, yeah.
And media trained people can very easily steal my podcast from me if I'm not careful.
Yes.
Because they're so keyed in on their key points and their talking points and and it's like I have to pull them back in. It's like, no, my podcast.
No, we're here to talk about and that's exactly it. And
But
that's
that's
funny
what
enough.
media training can do.
Immediately, of course, my brain, and this is free media training advice for all of you listening, is if you did end up on local media, the key is to talk about what you want to talk about. And so if you went viral for something silly, like paint spilling in your studio and your dog walking through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want the media interview to talk about the dog walking through the paint. You want to talk about all the beautiful artwork you have for sale in your studio and your upcoming event. And isn't it cute that your dog interrupted the core of your business?
Yeah.
That's what you want. You want to be a politician and not talk about what question was asked. You want to answer the question that you want to answer.
Politicians are stars at media training. They never answer any questions directly.
Correct.
And that's all media training.
Correct.
So not saying you need to be a politician on that level, but like it gives you an idea of how to be very focused and very clear on what it is. And it's funny because we did an interview with Zanet Reza.
Yes, she's so lovely.
And she was talking about her very first national television appearance where she had cue cards written down with her key points, and the announcer tore them up and showed them to the audience. So that's why it's important to have it all in your head.
That's too funny. Zana and I share a birthday. Random fact.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Anyway, we learned that on media tours together.
So yes, I think that's right. You know her as well. So so are you prepared for media inquiries? Are you prepared to do interviews? Is your website prepared for an influx of traffic if that happens? A lot of smaller websites on smaller platforms may not be able to handle it. So that's something to think about. Are you, if suddenly your website traffic was 100x, could you deal with it? The last thing you want, and this used to happen, Oprah used to do her favorite things shows. And so many of those brands were not prepared for what would happen. And you try to go to their website and it was just crash after crash. And you could never get through. It would take days. And by then you've forgotten about them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I wanted the
Yeah.
cheesy popcorn, but whatever. I've moved on.
Yeah.
Because people do move on really quickly. Like, so that's important.
Yes. And memory fades, right? Like you
Yeah,
saw it on TV, you saw it crossed your Instagram, you forgot to like it, but you saw it, you loved it, and now you can't find it anymore, and it's
happens to me
gone.
all the time,
Boop.
all the time. Or
Yeah.
Instagram refreshes it before you had a chance to
Yes.
try sweet bananas.
Do you know how often it happens? It's the first thing I see when I reopen the app and I go to like it, and then I'm liking like some stupid ad from some stupid thing that I didn't even
Yes.
ever want to subscribe to in the first place. And I'm like, where did you go? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to translate all these new views into customers, newsletter subscribers? Like, think about this. Is it easy for somebody to get from your viral reel to your website? Do you have links?
They have to go through a few clicks.
Yeah.
You have to click
So,
from the reel to me, to then my bio, to
uh,
then, yeah, it's a few
if you
clicks.
are an online shop, you can connect your shop with your social profiles. I don't think that translates. Can people shop from reels? I don't know if they
It
can.
can. Yes, you can
Can they?
add
Okay. I know you
products.
can do
You
it
can
from.
add products to them,
Okay.
I believe.
Um,
I believe. You can add products to your grid posts. I'm pretty sure you can add products to reels. I'm almost positive you can.
so make sure you have that connected so that people can
Yeah.
shop, because if they see something, this is especially if you do anything that is, it might be harder with a big 4 by 4 foot painting. People might not click on that. But if you sell small things
Yeah.
that people will buy on impulse, make sure that you've got your shop linked to
Mhm.
your social profiles. I don't think TikTok Shop is available in Canada yet. I think it's only in the US,
No.
but I would assume that's going to come soon. And I know a lot of
Mhm.
people in the US who have linked their businesses to their TikTok shops are doing very well. So
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Just
something.
look at the leggings, the TikTok leggings that have gone so viral. Yay.
So that's another reason to include your
Yep.
URL in your post descriptions, your reel descriptions. It's a place for people to find.
Yep.
Absolutely make sure it's in your bio.
Yes.
Um, yeah, make sure your profiles are shoppable if possible. Have a way to draw people into your newsletter list. That can be hard to do from the original reel.
Hmm.
But if you like, I noticed you did this, you had a lot of new followers, and you did a series of stories where you introduced yourself and told them who
Yep.
you were and how they could, you know, come on over to your newsletter list where you share a lot of other cool things and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you're doing all of that. The
And
other
again,
thing,
that's back to branding. Like that's
yeah,
reintroducing yourself, reinforcing your branding.
yeah,
So a series of
anytime,
stories, all
yeah,
of it. Yep.
anytime you get an influx of new followers, whether it's from a viral piece of content or it's just been a while, pop
Yep.
out and do a post. Those and show your face in those posts. Whenever
Yes.
I do one a year, like sort of when I do March Meet the Maker, I do a post in feed with my face saying who I am. And
Yeah.
those posts with my face in them always do
Yeah.
way better than,
Yes.
so they tend to get seen a lot more. And so it's a great way to get people to know who you are and
Hmm.
encourage them to sign.
Nurture,
Nurture,
nurture
nurture,
relation.
nurture.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like, I think we'll wrap up with nurture in a minute
Mm.
here, because I think that's so important. We briefly talked about inventory and things like that. And if you sell on Etsy, um, you have to be very careful here. If you suddenly your order volume goes up dramatically, Etsy has a habit of putting your shop on vacation mode until you fulfill all the orders that are outstanding. And so when that happens, it means that anyone new who lands on your Etsy shop won't be able to order. They won't even be able to see what you have in your shop when you're in vacation
Oh.
mode. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't sell on Etsy, you wouldn't know that. But
No.
so that's something I remember when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. There was
Yes.
a woman in one of my product making groups who made RBG stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And when she passed away, uh, her sales for that sticker went through the roof.
Right.
And her shop got put in vacation mode until she fulfilled all the orders, but she literally had hundreds of them. And it was just one sticker. Like they weren't like, it wasn't like they were $1,000 orders or anything. They were like $4 orders, but
Yeah,
she
but
had hundreds
still,
of them.
yeah,
So, yeah. So Etsy can throttle your ability to be able to sell, which is another reason why it's not a bad idea to have your own website, right? So
yeah,
that if something like that happens, then you can redirect people to your website, or that's where you direct them to in the first place, where you have a
yeah,
little more control over. And then just, yeah, how are you going to ship all those orders? Do you have somebody who can come help you?
yeah,
Right.
yep,
If you're a maker, can you get the quantity out there? Now that's when you hit that Taylor Swift level of
yeah,
virality, right? That's not going to happen to everybody, but it does happen to people. And you have to
yep,
have a plan in place. You don't necessarily have to have the inventory on hand, because that would be not a good idea either. But
hmm,
you have to
hmm,
have a plan in place for how you're going to fulfill those orders in a timely
yep,
manner.
yes.
Um, and another example that I'm just going to bring up is, I was reading about this woman online somewhere. She makes disco ball cowboy hats, I
Oh
think.
my God, amazing.
Yeah. So they're basically, I may have this wrong. So this is based on whatever it is she makes.
Hmm.
Beyonce's team saw
Okay,
them and ordered a couple, and Beyonce
okay,
wore them on her tour.
aha,
I think it was a disco ball cowboy hat. So basically, it was a cowboy
okay,
hat that had been decorated with the
yeah,
bits of glass.
mirrors and yeah,
So all handmade. And this, if I remember correctly, that's all this woman made. And so, of course, Beyonce wears something. It's like
oh
Oprah
yeah,
wearing something. It's like
yeah,
Taylor Swift, right? Everyone wants it
yeah,
now. And so this woman started getting all these orders, and she was fulfilling them as quickly as she could. She brought people on to help her. But the thing to remember is, if you only make one item and it
mm,
goes viral and it's something like that, what happens when the fad
yeah,
stops? Because
yeah,
there's only there's only so many people who are going to want a disco ball cowboy hat. It's going to be for a
correct.
very short period of time until Beyonce wears something else.
Yep,
And then the trend dies. And you have to
yep,
think about, you've brought all these people into your ecosystem, they've purchased from you, but how are you going to get them to purchase again?
yes,
You want them to purchase again.
yep,
So that's something to think about too, is how do you, what can you do to
yes.
build a business around what's happened to you?
Yes. And like think about again with me, Heather, back to the branding. But if your brand, if making those hats was that when you bought one, you knew that you were one of 10 people that year to get one of these items.
Mhm.
And that was a selling feature. That was something that made it unique to the buyer and to you as the seller and maker. And all of a sudden now you're selling hundreds of them. I would feel duped as an original buyer. Not okay.
Yeah.
You devalued our relationship, right?
Mhm.
And then as somebody new coming in, like I wouldn't really care that this was a small batch thing, because that's, you're not telling me it's small
No, I
batch.
just
You're
want
telling
my
me
disco ball hat like now, because
correct.
Beyonce has one and I need it.
Exactly. So like you really, that's where again it's back to the, what does that represent? And so if you do go viral and everybody wants your stuff, are you going to have to put your foot down and say, sorry, we only make 10 of these a year? It's a Birkin
Yeah.
bag.
I was just gonna say, it's
There's
like a
only 10
Birkin
of them a
bag.
year.
That's it. You get on the
Right?
waiting list and it's 10 years long, and in 10 years
Yep.
you'll get your bag.
And look at the Birkin. It's like people have wanted Birkin bags. The Birkin bag was freaking invented. And we all
Wasn't it like
still,
Grace
not we
Kelly
all,
who
but
made
like,
them popular?
yeah. And that, and so like, this has been 40 years now, 50 years, 60 years that the Birkin bag has been a statement fashion piece. It's a debate what you want about alligators and sustainability. We're not here to talk about that. But we're talk about the making of an item by craftspeople that people desire over and over, year after year. If
Yeah.
everybody who ever wanted a Birkin bag could have got one in year one, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
And they wouldn't be $8,000 or whatever they cost
No,
now. I don't even know what they
correct.
cost today, or the last time
Exactly.
I was.
Yeah,
I think there's a difference between a Birkin bag and a disco ball
totally.
cowboy hat. One is
Totally.
a Birkin bag will last you. It's classic. It's
Yes.
timeless. It'll last you forever. Your cowboy hat,
Wait, so you're telling me a cowboy hat
I was
covered in
just going to
mirrors is
say,
not timeless?
Heather, if that is your style and what you're known for, it is timeless for you.
True.
But for a
Yes.
lot of us, not
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
Not so.
I have a friend who makes disco ball stormtrooper helmets.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
I kind of actually need to get the address of this for one of my nephews for Christmas next year.
I will send you his details.
Yeah,
for sure.
please do.
He's a toy photographer. He does really cool stuff.
Oh my God.
But yeah, he makes these blinged out stormtrooper helmets. So Matt, I'm giving you a plug. I guarantee you he's never listened to this podcast.
Oh my God. Like my nephew's going to be turning 16 next year, and this would be like
Oh,
such a cool, yeah.
it would be
Anyway,
great if he does cons or anything like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we digress. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, again, his are small batch. He doesn't
Yes.
make them en masse for anyone. So I think we covered all of the things you want to be aware of: making yourself shoppable, having your website ready, having systems in place. I think this is where systems are so important.
Yeah.
Because when you do have systems in place, whether you go viral or not, systems let you handle unexpected things.
Yes.
It could be going viral. It could also be getting ill or having a family emergency or wanting to go on vacation. If you've got systems in place, it's just so much easier because you know what needs to happen. You know when it needs to happen. You know who's going to make it happen, and things just chug along at a better pace.
Yes.
When the volume goes up, maybe things slow down a bit, but the system is there to kind of keep in place. So
systems are a plan. And what's the expression? If you plan to fail, you'll fail to plan. No, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Or you want to.
Yes.
Anyways, yes.
Yes.
I know what you're saying.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what it is, regardless.
I used to work in IT for the last 10 years of my corporate career, and there was never just a plan A and a plan B. There was always a plan C, D, E, and F.
Correct.
The backup of the backup of the backup.
Correct.
So tech people are very good at having plans and systems in place. So yes, it serves you well. But as I mentioned, I wanted to wrap up on nurturing. Yeah. Because I think this is so important. Again, whether you go viral or not. And I think particularly in the social media environment that we're in today, where it is very hard to attract new people, we put a lot of energy into attracting. And there's all kinds of statistics out there, particularly if you've spent time in corporate marketing, where the cost of getting a new customer is far more expensive than nurturing and maintaining your existing customers. And this is so important. When somebody is in your ecosystem, the hard part, the expensive part has been done. It's not to say that it's not hard work to keep them there, but you've already convinced them that they like you.
Yeah.
Now you have to convince them to stick around.
Yes.
And so this is where it really is important to remember that you need to nurture these people who have been with you from the beginning. Those people who order from you again and again and again, those are your bread and butter. They're your VIPs. They are your, they're your everything, or they should be your everything.
Yeah.
And new people who come into your ecosystem, again, they should be nurtured as well. This is why you have email automation set up to welcome them in and tell them who you are. Getting them to your email might take a little bit of work.
Yeah.
But that's why you pop up and tell them, hey, I'm Heather. This is what I do on a regular basis. It's, and it doesn't have to be hard to nurture people. It's work for sure, but there's so many inexpensive, creative ways that you can make the people who follow you feel special.
Yes.
I think that's so important.
Yes. And in fact, I would say that the hardest part is simply showing up.
Yeah.
So just being there consistently that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And as long as you're aligned with what it is that you're there to do on brand, like I quite a number of times when I go to remind myself to show up, I go to record something and it's, I notice it on the days that I have to remind myself to show up. I record something and I go, that's not Heather. Why am I doing that? And then it's because I'm forcing myself to show up, and then I have to check why I wanted to post that or why I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
End up re-recorded something that's way more authentic, on brand, on message, and worth showing up for. And I think that's the key, is like remembering, if I'm bothering to post this and people are going to bother to watch it, I have to be, not like you can't share stupid shit, but like you have to, if you're bothering to show up for the things that are important to your business and growing your business and your brand and all of that. And sometimes that could be sharing you're having a bad day, but it could be, showing up is that's the hard part, I think.
Yeah. And I think in that vein, you don't need to show up every day. Like,
nope.
We don't need to hear from
nope.
you every day.
Nope.
Yeah, you have
showing
to
up looks different for all of us.
Yeah.
Showing up looks different for all of us.
It does. Yep. And people are bombarded with content in today's environment. So if you miss a day, it's okay. People won't notice.
No.
But yeah, so show up when you have something to say. I think sometimes when you show up when you have something to say, that's when people listen the most.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, she showed up today, this must be important, kind of thing. So yeah, that whole nurturing piece is, I know we all want more followers. We all want more eyeballs. We need that to grow. I get it. I'm in the early stages of a new business, so I totally understand that getting eyeballs is really, really hard. But at the same time, it shouldn't be at the expense of the people who've already signed up.
No. And in fact, if you think about it, like how many of the people that follow you or me on Instagram have actually made purchases from you or I? And so, but they're there for the ride, and they just haven't, and I think of it, they just haven't made a purchase yet. And if I stop nurturing them,
they won't.
Somebody new, they never will. And I have to start that journey all over again. It's like when you have to, you go around the jail in Monopoly and you have to go all the way back to go. You're starting all the way at the beginning again. So somebody who might have been following you or I for 3, 4, 5 years and hasn't purchased yet because they're saving up money, they haven't found the perfect piece, whatever. If I stop focusing on that person, like, you just never know.
Anyway. I'm in a Facebook group for a product masterclass that I took, and this happens every few months. There's somebody who will pop in and just say, I had a purchase today from somebody who has opened my last 17 emails and clicked, right? Because you can see all this when you're very often Shopify or depending on your email platform will tell you this person opened your last 17 emails. This person clicked on your last on links in your last 17 emails. And it happens all the time. This person clicked 11 times before they made a purchase. This person clicked 17 times before they made a purchase. And it's like, if you'd given up on them after 3, they would never have ordered. And very often it's just, we've all had those moments where you're just, scrolling late at night and you click and you're like, no, I don't need it. But you go back to it because it speaks to you, and I don't have the money this month, or it's going to have to wait till after I pay my rent or whatever, and you go back and forth. And eventually your circumstances improve, or you just are like, you know what? I've looked.
Today's the day.
There's just that moment. Right. And so that nurture is really important. And, they're far more likely to buy from you than somebody who's never seen your work. Right.
And they're far more likely to help promote you in a much more authentic way. Somebody, some of my biggest supporters on Instagram are people who've never purchased anything from me. The support that they give me is an intangible support. It is all their love and energy, which I feel through all the hearts and emojis and everything that, but it's also, every time I post something, they're sharing it, tagging me, telling people. That is hugely important. And that doesn't happen. The people who do that don't happen because they just landed on your page. They happen because you nurture that out of them.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
important.
So, yes, everyone, I hope that this gave you all some things to think about in terms of going viral. Is it something that you still want? Is it something that is going to change your business? Maybe, maybe not. Are you prepared if it does change your business? So lots of things to think about here. And I think at the end of the day, Heather, I've never gone viral. I've certainly had some posts in a previous business that did well, but I've never had anything go viral. So at the end of the day, Heather, like, are you glad that it went viral? Do you think it was a good thing? How do you feel?
So, what's really interesting, and this is my business brain, I think that it was the perfect lesson to understand that going viral isn't all it's cracked up to be. Like I think this was so serendipitous that you and I talked about it. It happened to both Brian and I in very close proximity.
Yeah, that's
and the results were not what I would have suspected. And the anxiety, I think I said it earlier, but the anxiety over quote going viral now is numbed because I realize it's probably not, like it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And it didn't have the results. Like I made no sales. I have no, there's nothing really tangible to share for it. And same with Brian, except we have a whole podcast episode that but to me, that was the most interesting thing, was that it, from an educational, like to me, I felt like this was a marketing lesson that we got to learn in real time. That was, what did going viral mean to me? It meant actually understanding my craft and the business that I'm in better. That's what it meant. It didn't mean anything other than that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a good lesson that it's not the thing to pin your hopes to. It's kind of like winning the lottery. Like it would be amazing if you won the lottery, but is that really going to happen?
Yes.
Maybe.
And same thing, actually, you really do need to plan for it, right? Like you need to plan for the taxes that you're going to pay if you win the lottery. You need to plan, like if you were planning on divorcing your husband,
the trolls that come out of
and
the
you want the money, exactly.
Family
Who are you going to set boundaries over whether Uncle Joey gets the money or not? You have to set all of those things. Both you need to plan, and it's back to that prom analogy. It's like the what ifs. Just plan for those what ifs. Like, what if my business goes big?
If anything, winning the lottery is easier than going viral, because when you win the lottery, you have 12 months before you have to claim the ticket. So you can do the planning anonymously, knowing that you have that money coming. When you go viral, you don't have that opportunity. You go viral and you're very visible immediately. So in some ways, winning the lottery would be a better. I'd rather take the money, to be honest. So
oh my God, yes. Because then in terms of going viral means gives you the freedom to try new things, like John Grisham, for instance. Well, if I won the lottery, I too would have freedom to try new things. So
exactly.
I'd take that too.
So it's a lot to think about, but I hope we gave you, I hope we demystified it a little bit for you all. And I hope we gave you some things to think about. And I hope that this has made all of us realize that going viral is not how we should plan for the success of our business to happen. And I think also that going viral doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of hard work still to come. That's just the start of more hard work and different problems. You're still going to have problems. They're just going to be different problems and different challenges. So, I think that's probably it for this week then.
Oof, yes.
It's good to have you back on the show. It feels like it's been a while.
I know.
I meant to go back and look and see when the last time we chatted with, but everyone. So if you have gone viral, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, yes.
Leave a note on our Instagram account and or send us an email. We'd love to hear your stories, and if it was a good experience for you, a bad experience for you, or something in between. So all right, everyone, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back in another 2 weeks with another brand new episode, and we'll talk to you all then.
Toodaloo.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.